What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you a look at the launch version of cyberknights Flashpoint, a trpg that released out of early access into its full version on June 3rd, that I had previously covered here and there, and obviously wanted to take a look at it now that it is properly out there, as it's a pretty fun blend of things like Cyberpunk 2077 along with XCOM and the like. And while I have covered this game previously, they've had an extremely busy early access period because they've put out about 255 patches for this over the course of about 18 months. That is not an exaggeration, that was the actual number. And since this game has released on the 3rd, they've already put out 3 more patches from it. And while I applaud their dedication to updating things, that does make it a little difficult on my end to, pin down concrete information, which when you're presenting something in a video is obviously what you want. But to that end, don't expect a full review from me on this one for the foreseeable future, as I am simultaneously busy with other things, but also I would like this to get to a point where it is receiving a few less updates so I can make a video that is the clear picture of what the game is. But in spite of that, just to throw this out here at the beginning, I enjoy this game a lot. I think it's really cool. It's got some fun ideas, as most of the cyberpunk side of things is sort of heist-oriented. There's a lot of stealth mechanics, an evolving combat AI that reacts to you, a whole host of content, and all for a base price of about $30. It seems like a really good time. And to that end, then, let's of course talk a few more specifics. So, the setting of this game is, as with most cyberpunk games, a sort of interesting dystopia where most of the world has been reduced to barren wastelands by, of course, wars, overproduction, and also some fights against AIs that thoroughly ravaged the planet. But the good news is the world is actually on the upswing when the game starts. The world is starting to recover from all of those past events, and thus, people are looking to capitalize on that, make their fortune, and live out a good life, which is where our team comes in. We are going to be essentially playing an entire crew of mercenaries for hire, pulling off all sorts of odd jobs as you try to, of course, make that living that you're desperately hoping for in order to get out of all of this. And while you do play a full team, you will also make a specific character to play as in missions known as a cyberknight, because one of the more interesting bits of tech that was evolved in all of the drama and everything that went down previously was the cyberknights, basically people with a computer of some sort grafted to their spine directly to enhance their capabilities. Almost all of them went rogue eventually, and thus the technology was made illegal, but they of course still have their uses, especially in the underworld. No matter how you start the game, your main character finds themselves in the role of having been granted one of these implants, making you a very useful courier for information, because one of the useful things about this implant is that it makes certain bits of data basically impossible to steal from someone. But what's really interesting about the story is how it evolves around the character you choose to build as well, both in terms of your character's starting background, one of 4, which will kind of determine your path into the shady underworld in which you find yourself, but that is actually then followed up by the overall direction of your entire crew, which comes down to syndicate debts or null deal, basically how you got started as a mercenary group in addition to just your main character. Syndicate debts is the sort of default one, and then null deal actually starts by your cyberknight having to be rescued by your team after you were kidnapped, and obviously it has different story events for each. There's actually choice and consequence involved in this, as well as there are story beats that you can choose to zig or zag on. Like, for instance, in syndicate debts early on, you have the choice between paying the person back who financed your surgery for the cyberknight implant the normal way, that is to say making money and just paying them, or you can do a couple of very difficult jobs in order to have that debt erased completely. But given that this financer for the implant is the one setting all this up, it doesn't take a genius to figure out that she's lying to you about what is exactly going on there. Just as a little bit of a taste of what the sort of evolving story has in store for you. As with many a tactics game, it does of course have difficulty options as well. You can choose a custom modifier or choose from a bunch of presets. It's got an Iron Man mode on its highest difficulty and a bunch of variations in between that, of course, all the way down to extremely easy mode, basically. So you should be able to customize that to your heart's content, and I believe outside of Iron Man, you're free to mix and match that as you please. Outside of all that stuff, we do of course have to actually get started, which involves actually making your mercenary. So including your background that I just mentioned, you'll also set their starting attributes, a couple of their traits, which are specific to their background, by the way, and some starting implants, stuff like that, before you actually customize their appearance, and then you'll go on to customize the rest of your team. Each of these characters, of course, can perform different roles. You can customize these characters and swap between a few different presets for each individual role, but the face role is especially important because that's not a character that's going to join you in combat, but rather somebody who handles all of the setup. They get bonuses to things like negotiating the prices on the heist and things that you'll be doing. You will be able to recruit more people later if you so choose, but this is sort of your starting lineup, and then you can customize all of their appearances and everything as you go as well. Now this game has a fair bit going on in terms of its turn-based combat, as you would expect from a tactics game, and to that end, I imagine they have included at some point a much more in-depth tutorial explaining all of the game's systems right at the beginning if you want to get to grips with what to expect here, which I would advise because of some of the unique stuff that make this game more interesting. Specifically, the AI that ramps up everything going on a mission as you raise security and alarms. So one of the key mechanics that makes this game interesting is that as you proceed through a mission, you have to keep an eye on the security level. Basically, the more you engage enemies, make noise, the security level will start to tick up. And every so often, this triggers an escalation, which then adds additional layers to the mission. This can be things like triggering extra security options, such as lasers, security cameras, motion sensors, pressure plates, that kind of thing, and even some mines and stuff like that once you start getting up to the higher levels. It can also, of course, summon in reinforcements or send guards to investigate certain locations, and this means that you have to stay pretty mobile and potentially quiet. Now, there are a variety, of course, of different types of missions to undergo, and not all of them are as brutal as others in terms of having to stay low and try to keep that security bit down. The rest of combat, while of course interesting based on your setups and the individual skills of any individual character, is still a little more what you would expect from any given tactics game. It does use an action point system. Each character gets action points based on their stats that they can then spend on movement and of course attacking. It does have a cover system and all the usual bells and whistles. You can tell somebody enjoys tactics games from messing around with this, as it is in fact a game that hits pretty much all the hallmarks of the genre, I would say. But even beyond that, there is still more to cover, because then we of course have the actual base management. So eventually you're going to get back to your base, and this is going to see you cleaning up and upgrading various rooms to include various levels of utilities, which will allow you to build up extra modules and things to add on to your base with. One of those will have to be ventilation, so you can fight off the nano plague, which haunts places like this, but that's how you're going to get access to different facilities outside of course, the base HQ, barracks, and the overall storage. Now, back at base, one of the main things you're going to be doing, though, is preparing for upcoming heists. This involves sending individual agents on legwork to give you a leg up, as it were, on various missions you're about to undertake, which can be extra information or special one-time bonuses you can call in. You're going to have a list of underworld contacts that you can call in favors with to also grant you some of these bonuses if you don't have the cash to pay for them potentially. And this can give you extra advantages on any given mission, which can, of course, help you turn them in your favor, given the security level restrictions in place. Now, all of your characters do in fact have relationships with all of the others as well, so who you take on missions and how they get along is definitely going to play into things as well. Characters can permanently die depending on the difficulty you have it on, and your reputation with the various factions around the city as you complete missions for and against them will of course be taken into account at the same time, and thus you've got a pretty robust system of just with how all of these guys interact with each other before you even start talking about story missions and all that. Putting all of that aside for a moment, we also then have character progression stuff. You can, of course, buy and sell all of the items you'll be picking up along the way, armor and weapons mostly, to, of course, outfit your characters appropriately, but as they then undergo missions, they will, of course, gain experience and have the opportunity to, of course, and have the opportunity to upgrade their skills, which typically involves giving them extra passive bonuses to their stats alongside extra abilities to actually use in combat or just the active scenario you find yourself in. Characters like your face also level up, but their bonuses are more geared towards, of course, getting you the best possible outcome for your missions, which is going to give you the resources to do things like upgrade all of the modules in your base, as an example, outside of just the gear itself. And when you put all of that together, I think Cyberknights Flashpoint is a very in-depth tactics game that I think if you're a fan of that genre, you will likely love. I think it's doing a lot of cool things. And while I don't have time to fully dive into it right this moment, I do think it's almost certainly going to be worth people's time, especially if you enjoy the genre. And thus, I wanted to put out this video kind of talking about that, but I won't have a chance to fully dive into this for a while myself as I'm busy with other things, as I mentioned. But for today, I think that paints at least a pretty clear picture of what Cyberknights is hopefully all about for you. But by all means, I'd love to hear what you think about this one down in the comment section below, which of course means to like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz. But regardless of any of that, truly, just thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.